Hello and welcome to Fire in the Valley. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by the Ran Lindner. Good afternoon to you, sir. Or good morning, I should
Good
say.
afternoon. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, listen, coming all the way across the Atlantic today. So to give everyone a bit of background to our listeners today, so Ran is a personal development specialist who's worked as a behavioral coach for clients in top organizations all over the world. After two sudden, unexplained cardiac arrests at a young age, he began to explore different perspective with clients that comes with any profound life-changing event. If you aren't living, you're dying. Wasn't uncommon for Ryan to teeter on unconsciousness, even at times while working with a client, requiring him to prioritize his own energy and time masterfully and assisting clients to do the same. Ryan has conducted thousands of coaching sessions, has led operations for major leadership and organizational change company, and manages learning and development projects for companies to reshape their customer experience. Ryan, awesome to have you on the show. That's quite an achievement that you have there. So thank you first of all for coming on. I appreciate you.
Yeah. I'm excited to chat, and yeah.
So tell us first of all, what does Fire in the Belly mean to Ryan then? What's it all about?
It's just about connecting with people and having impact. That's all. And hopefully there's things that resonate with people that make them think of things differently, have a different perspective. I've worked with, a lot of different types of clients over the years. I've had psychologists of clients. I've had military leaders. I've had executives, CEOs. And it was funny because the first time I had a client who's a psychologist, I kind of thought to myself, aren't they supposed to have it all figured out? As a psychologist, right? But I realized quickly that, we're all just people, and, we're all working on something, and we can't always see ourselves. So that's really my job, is to, work with people to see their blind spots and to, just kind of reshape the way they view certain things and move forward with their goals.
That's really interesting, because I mean, our truth is our truth, right? Our truth is the truth as far as we're concerned, and why can we not see our blind spots, do you think?
I think it requires us to do something that we're not used to, which is just pause for a moment and really, I think it requires self-awareness, and that's often something you can't always train people to do. They have to find it on their own in some ways. They have to go through, a life shift or life transformation. And that's really the crux of what I help people do is, I specialize in transitions. So helping people with maybe a career change, maybe a lot of my clients have felt overwhelmed, super busy, stressed, and they feel like they're just kind of on that hamster wheel, and where can they go from there? And if you give someone, a lot of times I can see the solution for somebody plain as day. I can see a solution right in front of them. But what happens is, as a coach, if you give someone a list of 20 suggestions, they're going to give you 20 reasons why each of those won't work. Oh yeah, I've got to finish this before I get to that. I'm so busy, I don't have time for that. They'll give you a list of 20 things. So it's really about helping people get unstuck with that, and really look more at the how are they going to shift, and really look at things different. Because again, I can see the solution right in front of them, but they can't see it. So yeah.
Interestingly, I mean, you talk about transition. Is transition and transformation, are they one and the same for you?
I think there's a lot of overlap there for sure. I mean, I think you can, but I don't think they're exactly the same for me anyway. I think if you can transition to something, but your life more or less is going to be, could be the same. You could, and everyone is, I've seen and I've worked with a lot of clients one-on-one, thousands, and then I've also worked with big organizations, helping sort of retrain them. And that's more of what I do now. But transformation to me is I love that word. And it's really something that has shifted in terms of the way you view things, that's had a dramatic impact on your life. So I always tell people this example. You can help a hoarder get organized. You can help them clean. You can, have an expert go in and help them, and they'll have the cleanest house after that. But you know what? They'll be hoarding again in a week, unless they transform the way they approach their lives. And I think that's the problem with a lot of self-help, or shelf help, as I sometimes call it, is it just sort of sits on your shelf. Is there's so many resources that give you, here's 10 steps to do this, here's 15 steps to get more organized, to achieve your dreams, to do this. And it's so interesting to me, because a lot of my clients, they come to me and they say, you know what, I've read all the books. I've read all those self-help books. And, and here I am. So, if you have 10 different gurus, they're going to give you 10 different methods of the way, the way that they say, this is the way to do it, and it's the right way. And so for me, it's really about helping people explore what will actually work for them. And it really is that transformation that has to take place in terms of, getting to the root cause of things, and not just treating a symptom, which a lot of self-help does. And so for me, it's really, again, it comes back to, we can't see ourselves. And then how do we do that?
Well, that's interesting, because you get, and I always hear people sort of saying, you get inspiration, motivation, which are nice, right? But short term, I can motivate you, but that's going to wear off this afternoon or tomorrow or wherever, right? But as you say, the transformation is the bit that fundamentally essentially changes who you are, changes your DNA, etc., right?
Exactly. You're absolutely right. And most often, and what you see when someone goes through a major life change, it's usually something that awakens them, a catalyst of some sort. In other words, like when someone goes through a trauma, they get in a car accident, right? What do? They are present for a moment and they say, whoa, I need to reevaluate my life. That was close. Or maybe they lose a loved one, or maybe they've been in a career for many years and they got, laid off or something. Just something really major happens and it causes them to reflect. And most people do not reflect to that degree on a daily basis. When you're in an ICU or when you're in the hospital, you're not thinking about all your little problems. You're not thinking about mowing the grass or any of the little work dramas. You are thinking about, whoa, I'm in the hospital and what's important to me, and those types of things. And often, you don't need a trauma for that sort of shift, but usually when we are faced with something really, that reminds us we're people and our lives are short, when you have a reminder like that, it usually people who make dramatic shifts go through something like that I've seen.
Do you think, and I've heard this expression where people say, in your darkest hour comes your brightest moment. And is it that, do we kind of have to feel our own pain, or actually also see the darkest moment, then give us that contrast? As you say, it's the hospital moment, it's the bottoming out, it's the desperation moment, or enough's enough type. Is that the sort of where we have to go to have this transformation?
I don't think it's needed, it's necessary, but I think that is often the case. I've seen people make really dramatic transformations and something just clicked with them, something resonated with them, and they made a shift. But mostly it is common to have it be something big like that because again, we can't see ourselves, so we're sort of stuck in this living for tomorrow type of thing. And tomorrow, of course, we're gonna resolve, it'll be better, and we'll be better able to to make changes. But yeah, unfortunately, it is, generally something big that happens that causes change. Doesn't have to be, though. Doesn't have to be.
What was the case for you then? I mean, have you always been this way? Have you always had this clarity, or is it, have you had sort of defining and changing moments in your life that have brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, so I grew up and I had I'm very introverted, and most of my clients would probably be surprised with that, but very introverted, grew up with really bad anxiety, and I always sort of gravitated towards wellness, and mostly because it helped me. I had a really hard time certainly in public and public speaking, and a lot of people suffer with that, but mine was really, really bad. And socially at times, especially in groups, I really did struggle. And I just was drawn to sort of wellness, and over the years, I actually found what I would call at the time my dream job. Right, I got my first actual coaching job, and I never set out to be a coach. I didn't know that was an option. I didn't know that was a career, and so I spent many years sort of trying to find myself, whatever that means. And I realized that yourself is never someone you can find. That person it's just someone you allow. It's someone you allow. And I discovered that a lot too, working with so many different types of clients, is we're all sort of chasing these visions of ourselves that is better than the person we are. If I do this, I'll be better. If I do that, I'll be better. And I think I overcame, and I speak in front of huge groups all the time. I overcame that only when I owned it. I owned who I was and said, maybe me being introverted and having anxiety, maybe there's nothing to fix there. Ooh, that's interesting. Maybe if I don't have anything to fix, and maybe I even like it about myself. I love it about myself that I'm introverted, because I know a lot of introverts who are great leaders. They're introspective. They are great listeners. And maybe I like it. Maybe I like that. And once I owned it and stopped treating it as something to be fixed, a lot of those issues went away. So anyway, I was drawn to coaching, and I was a coach for maybe a month, and I had a cardiac arrest, my first of two. And again, I explained, my history of wellness, non-smoker, slept well, eat well, wellness was my thing, no family history. And I just sort of randomly dropped right there. And at the time, I didn't have any benefits. I didn't have paid time off or anything. So I was back at work 5 days later. I had a pacemaker installed, and I was connected to all these wires in this session. And I just remember this lady I was talking to, and she was one of the ones I was describing, where she was just sort of stuck in these. She was trying to start this business and trying to manage a household, which is all fair. It's very busy lifestyle. But she was very lost in her own mental chatter. And I just remember thinking, her problems sound so different now after my cardiac arrest, because I was just trying to stay conscious. Like I was my vision was going, and I have this condition where I'm like dizzy 24/7. And I've been to specialists all over the place. But when you have to manage your energy, and that's all time management is, just managing your own energy. When I had to manage my energy after going, I went through a trauma, and then I found myself, I had to manage my energy. Suddenly, I didn't have time for the problems. I didn't have time to worry about those types of things. And my life dramatically shifted after that, and sessions shifted as well.
I find that, I mean, suppose going back a bit is just owning your introversion. Instead of saying, oh, this is per me, or this is a weakness, or this, it's just accepting and saying it is, full stop.
It is. And I think people say, oh yeah, I believe in self-acceptance and I do accept myself, but they don't always reflect that. They don't always do that. It's just like when I ask people about their priorities in life, most people know it. Most people know it's a priority. Oh, my family, these are my goals, but they don't reflect it. They don't actually do that. Again, we can't see ourselves. So they don't do those things. And yeah, you're right. Yeah, it just comes back to, we can't see ourselves and yeah.
So I love that, because, so many people are saying, are you capable of more? Could you have done more? I say, oh yeah, listen, oh yeah. And so it's like, what more do we need to say here? So your people are saying, oh, I'm doing everything I can. Could you do more? Are you capable of more? What are you capable of? So much more. Okay, so what's going on here then? What's the difference? And as you say, I love what you said at the very start. You talked about impact and perspective, right?
Well, you're right. And you reminded me of, so, I might have, it's like that saying, you reminded me of a saying, it's, you want something done, give it to a busy person. And, I would have clients, and I have to laugh at it now. I'd have clients who are like, swear they're so busy and they don't have time to do something. But I'm thinking, well, right now you're unemployed. You sleep in pretty late, but if you ask them, they're stressed to the max. Likewise, I've had clients, I've had, single moms of 5 kids who have stressful careers, and they are go-getters, and they're going out and getting stuff done. And I'm not saying that people aren't legitimately busy, because they are. But a lot of it, if you believe that you're stuck and you don't have time, then that's true. If you believe, and if you get lost in the fact that, yes, I'm stuck and I'm busy and I don't have time for this, then that's true for you, and you're not going to get anywhere. So you don't want to lose the how am I going to do this? How it's like when I go to the a lot of people have fitness goals or health goals or whatever. I remember one day we had real bad, it was starting to snow and ice real bad. And my first thought was, oh no, the gym might close early. That's my first thought. And so I need to figure out a way to get in there. Because around where I live near a beach, and we don't see that stuff. So the minute there's a snowflake, everything shuts down and people go into their bunkers, and gyms close. And I thought, well, if I want to work out today and I have that commitment to my own health, I need to shift some things and get in there. Well, I did. I shifted my schedule and I went to work out. And I noticed in the gym that everybody was a familiar face. There weren't many people there. Everyone was a familiar face. And what I took away was the only people in the gym were regulars. And that's because they're regular. In other words, the people that had that as a positive habit, a priority, they figured out a way to make that happen. They rearranged something. They figured out a way to make it happen. The people that were looking for a way out, they're the ones, the people that, said, oh, it's snowing, I can't do it. That was true for them, and they didn't make it happen. So again, it's just how you look at it in terms of making it happen.
It's really interesting, isn't it? How certain things will motivate people to it being an absolute must, as in, I'll find a way, whatever else it is. It's that focus of that determination of thought, as opposed to, yeah, it's a good idea, or I could do that, or yeah, I started it, but I didn't finish it, right? So they're just two completely different energies, right?
You're right. And if you look at people who are successful, and I work a lot with say career transitions, the amount of rejection someone gets, either it's a big goal, maybe a business goal, maybe a certain type of job you were looking for, there's a lot of rejection involved. And when you look at someone successful, you don't know what they went through to get to that point. I remember Oprah Winfrey was called unfit for TV once. Stephen King, the author, he was rejected a ton of times. I mean, there's just a ton of people that are well known that have gone through a whole bunch of rejection that people look at and go, wow, they're successful. And so when I help people with transitions, say career, it's all about your approach to it and the way you view those types of things, the way you view the rejection and what you do from there. It's about figuring it out. It's about the how. And you take it's the law of averages, right? If you continually get better and every single piece of feedback you get, say you got rejected from a job application, you devour the feedback. You have to detach from the outcome. Detach from the outcome. It's no reflection on you as a person, the rejection. Devour the feedback and do it again. You get rejected again. Again, detach from the outcome and devour the feedback, do it again. And you do it again and again, and you keep getting better and better. And eventually, all it takes is one yes. All it takes is one yes. And then you're off to the races. So.
I mean, I think egoically, are we totally sort of self-hypocritical? Because as you say, that one rejection feels like everything, but then on the other aspect, when we're choosing, we want nothing but the best, right? So we're being self-hypocritical and going, well, no, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that, here's what I want, right? So on one hand, we're the one that's inflicting the rejection. Say, well, I don't want that job, or I don't want to date that person, or I don't want that food, or whatever, right? So saying, no, this is what I want, and we're ruthless. But then when it comes to the other side, when we're sort of open and we're vulnerable to, this connection to others or this approval or whatever else, then suddenly we get, we're like a wallflower. We get one rejection. It's like, oh, it must be personal, right? So what is it, right? Or is that not self-hypocritical, do you think?
It is. And see, we don't know we're doing it, right? It's that mental chatter. And you remind me, like when I work with people who've been rejected a lot, and oftentimes I've worked with people who are executives now, and they've been rejected hundreds of times, thousands even. And, if you've been rejected 384 times, number 385, it's just not a big deal for you. But sometimes you have to take that risk. You have to detach enough to say, any rejection has no bearing on my value as a person. So to your point, it's all about that sort of mental chatter. And what a lot of people do who are stuck is they say, oh, this rejection, it has a reflection on me, and they jump to conclusions. They have assumptions. But again, detachment just means that you don't get in the weeds, in your head. You don't let that internal dialogue kick in where you're like, oh gosh, I'm a loser. I got rejected because I'm no good. You don't know what happened. You don't know what happened. Now, oftentimes, and I've worked with leaders in HR and so forth, I know what happens sometimes. Suppose that company, they decided to hire from within. Okay. Maybe the timing was bad. Maybe you applied for the role at the very end of the hiring cycle and they already had someone. It's like, looking for a job is kind of like dating. You're this company went on 10 dates with this one person. They have feelings for him, and they just met you. So, they're more likely to get the job. And, you just don't know. And also maybe they had 900 applicants, 900. Would it make you feel better to know that you were number 2? You still didn't get the job, of course. But if you knew you were number 2 out of 900, you probably wouldn't feel like a loser. is my guess. Like, it's like the valedictorian of a university or whatever. They have the best grades. Well, if you're number two, there's no shame in that. There's no shame in that. You're still not number one, but there's still no shame in it. But again, you would feel better knowing you were number two, and the second choice, rather than the number 745 in terms of your self-esteem. So you just don't know what happened. But what we do in terms of a mental dialogue is we go down this rabbit hole of, oh man, I'm a loser and this and that. And we don't realize that successful people, look, we all feel like frauds at one point or another. I was doing a session with this executive once, and he was talking about imposter syndrome and how he sometimes feels like he was a COO of a big company, and he was super smart. He is super smart. And he was just saying, I don't always have it all figured out. He said, just to be honest with you, we all feel like imposters at one point or another, because the question is, can you be okay with that? Can you be confident in your not knowing, in your uncertainty, in your lack of confidence? Can you be confident in that? Can you be confident that you will figure it out? You don't have to, know everything, right? And I think that's what those resilient people do, is they get a rejection and they say, no worries, it happens. I'm not going to get lost in, I have no, I'm not going to engage in the mental dialogue of, you just don't know what happened, right? So the best thing they can do is learn from it, move on, and let go of outcomes.
It's that aspect, and I'm trying to work out here. I mean, you have failure, which will slow you down, or, in fact, it'll potentially move you backwards. There's the aspect then of getting okay with it and just accepting it. So neutralizing the energy. And then it's, what's more important here? Is it neutralizing the energy, or can you take it a step further or two steps further and say, I actually feed on failure? That is my fuel source, as opposed to being my stopper, my blocks, whatever, and saying, or is it just enough to be okay with it, or can you make it a fuel, a source of energy for you?
I think it definitely can be a source of energy. I would say to that, failing doesn't make you a failure. A failure is this person you've created that, regardless of any circumstance you're in, is a failure. You've created that person. And that's a story. That's a story you're telling yourself. Whereas failing doesn't do that. Okay, I failed at this one thing. Am I a failure? Is that how I'm defining myself now? Am I a failure? And so, yeah, I mean, I can see that being a useful energy in terms of a drive to, again, figure it out, collect the right information, and do it again and do it again. It's like practice. But I'm intrigued by the word failure, because it's almost like we've created ourselves into that. It's a story, and that's it. And that's not who you are. And you're not the successful person either. You are a person, and our whole lives are a sum total of little micro decisions we make every day. And there are so many factors at play to determine, if you're successful with something. If you're looking for a certain type of role, for example, employers care about two things. Number one, can you do the job? And number two, would they like to work with you? Do they like you? And again, you just don't know what all the factors are involved with that. So the best thing you can do is don't define things. Don't rush into that, because they're just assumptions. That's all it is. And again, how can you get better, and just keep going? And you will. It's a law of averages. You will at some point. You will, again, just takes that one yes.
It's that thing. I mean, it sort of reminds me of, it's like Thomas Edison, I think it was, and they're sort of saying it took 1,000 goes to get the light bulb, and you kind of think, pretty sure on the 990th go, people were sort of saying, do you know what, Thomas, just give it up, buddy. You're mad. You're chasing clouds. You're crazy, right? But then when the failure, or the failure as an opportunity to learn, is switched into the possibility, then yeah, on the whatever it is, thousands go where success comes, then that experience or that perspective changes everything, right? And saying, yeah, I love it because now I had to do it 1,000 times to get it right. Before that experience of that switch, it was hard work, it was impossible, it was never ending, it was everything. And then as soon as you get that bout of experience or success or whatever, then suddenly it's like, yeah, that's the price you pay. Fantastic.
I would say, like, in that case, like, it takes a special person. Like, what a lot of people do is they pull you into their fear. And like, if you have a big goal, right? And you have, the people you tend to have the most shared history with, they want the best for you, of course, and they care about you. But oftentimes, without realizing it, a lot of people do pull you into their fear a little bit. And it's the fear of the unknown. It's a fear of risk. And so they're going to, most people gravitate towards familiarity. They do. And rejection is not a comfortable feeling for them. So what do? They're going to go back to the safety of familiarity. And that's why a lot of people they don't take those big risks. Well, those big risks are really necessary to learn what you need to learn to get to that place. So I imagine Edison, 1,000 times or whatever, what were people saying? I think it takes a special person, like, what in his mind, or anyone else who's successful, what was different there? Because it would have been so easy to give up, right? It'd been so easy to say, oh, why bother? It's not worth it. And even in my own career, like, there were times I just thought, I would say when I found my footing, it was later than all of my peers in terms of where I really found where I shined in my career and what I was interested in. I was never one to want to work in the corporate environment, really. It just felt like a stuffy culture kind of thing. And what I was interested in didn't pay a lot. So I would always try to create my own business and this and that. And the amount of rejection, failure I experienced was insane. I mean, and for a long time, this was many years ago, I would just, to make ends meet, I was like doing every odd job I could. I painted fences, I made trinkets and sold them. I actually sold some artwork, which was fun for a while. I waited tables. I did every 30 different types of jobs, not an exaggeration. And it was easy for me to look at my peers and say, they're ahead of me. They make more money than me. And so there must, either I don't have it figured out, either I'm dumb, either maybe I'm just a loser. And I've gone there several times, gone to that mental place. And what I would say is, once I found my footing, and most of our ideal roles or jobs is something we fall into, right? It's something we don't know exists. That's the way it happens a lot. So once I said, this comparison thing, the saying is, comparison is the thief of joy. And that is true. It didn't help me. And once I realized, look, you don't know how your story plays out, and then once I found my footing and my income increased, and then I look at my friend, and maybe he was going through a rough time in his life, and I was the one that he said, whoa, Ryan, look at him, So again, you just, life is ebbs and flows, and you don't know how your story plays out. You don't know how their story plays out. So again, it's that mental chatter that really keeps you in that place where you're incorrectly defining yourself, you know.
It's interesting saying you were sort of later than your sort of peers around you to find what you are, who you are, and what you're doing. But I mean, I would almost argue the opposite. I mean, how many people actually genuinely are doing what they want to do, what they love to do, you know, and how many people are just doing it? So it's like, you know, they are working to then go live, as opposed to, you know, they're living to work, and you know, the work fills them up as opposed to draining them down, you know. And I don't know, it's a rhetorical question maybe, but how many people love what they do?
I think very few. I think that, well, there are people that love what they do in the bubble of familiarity. So they maybe had some goals or dreams, but they have settled into this lifestyle where it's like, it's good enough kind of thing. And that's fine. You know, again, if it's true for them, they create their truth there. But often, you know, if they could do anything, I'm not saying we can do anything you want. I don't believe that per se. Like, I'd love to play professional football, but that's probably not going to happen. But I believe it's that in the bubble of familiarity, people get to this place where they're maybe complacent, or they're accepting of that situation. But most people do not know what's possible, or they do not know how they're speaking in their heads in ways that would hold them back. And what would life look like if they didn't do that? Now, one thing I want to add is, I don't think I'm not an advocate of people defining themselves through roles. You know, most people think they're a role and not a person. They're you know, you meet somebody and they say, and you introduce yourself, and they're going to just give you their resume. Oh, so what do you do? Oh, I do this, and I do this, and I do this. And they're going to give you a whole bunch of stuff that they do. Now, I would argue that that's not actually who you are. Those are just maybe extensions of who you are, you know. But once you stop thinking of yourself as a role and a person, and really open your mind to what would make you say at the end of life, I have fully explored that life. Fully explored. Because when you ask people what they think their purpose in life is, they're going to give you another role. Oh, my purpose in life is to be a nurse because I want to help people. Well, nursing, and I know a lot of nurses, and they're, you know, the ones I know are fantastic. And that's great. But nursing is a role. It's, what does the nurse do? And you can do that if you're not a nurse, right? You can do those same types of things. You can help other people. And once you realize that your purpose in life is to explore it and explore who you are in life, that's the purpose. It's not a role. It's not, you know, you may never define yourself. And that's good. That's a good thing. You may never define yourself. It's about exploring who that person is. And I think once people realize that rejection and all that, that's a part of that journey. And they say, you know what, this is just me. Every day is an experiment. Every day is trial and error. I'm just trying to explore this person. That, you know, I think that's a beautiful thing.
What stage are you at personally then, in terms of exploring and in terms of knowing yourself and your purpose, your life's mission or meaning, if you like?
I am comfortable saying that I don't fully know myself. And I think that's a healthy way to think, because otherwise you put yourself in a box. And you know, for people say, oh, that's, you know, I know myself. And what I've learned, especially working with lots of clients, and you know, people going through, let's say, going through a really nasty divorce and custody battle. I've seen people do things that they would normally, that are uncharacteristic of them. You never knew they were capable of that. And unless you have been in every circumstance I think all of us, we don't know exactly how we would be in every situation. And you also look back in your past and you say, well, how have I changed over the years? How have different situations changed me? My cardiac arrest kind of changed the way I look at things. So what if something happened tomorrow? Hopefully it's a good thing. What if that changes my view of, or what I've learned about me? So again, you don't know how your story plays out. And I think life is the journey of learning that person. But could I say now I know who I am? No, not at all. Yeah, I've seen some tendencies that I have, and by no means do I ever tell people I have it all figured out. Even if I'm a coach, I am just a person working on things, and I think being aware of them is the best thing I can do. And let me give you an example, because you mentioned something earlier that really triggered something for me. You mentioned the whole idea of being like a hypocrite, kind of. I once had a just a wonderful leader for a big leadership company. And her concern that she shared with me was that she was concerned that people were viewing her as a hypocrite. In other words, like she would, as a leader, and she worked for a leadership company, so she was supposed to be like a cultural expert in business and how to get the best from people and all that. And she said, I'm worried people think I'm a hypocrite because I'm preaching all this stuff. And what if they're like, oh man, this lady doesn't have it figured out? She was always worried that people were thinking she wasn't practicing what she was preaching. And my response was, by the mere fact that you are able to look at that and be concerned about that means you are not a hypocrite, because it's not about getting it perfect and it's not about figuring it all out. It's about being open to it. It's about being open to getting better. It's about being open to stepping back and looking at yourself. It's about, and it's not about getting it perfect, right? And I think that openness, it is so rare in leaders. One thing I did for many years is I tracked turnover in companies so I could see if there was like a cultural component to that. And no bad leader thinks it's them. They point to like 50 different circumstances for why people are leaving the company. And I think you don't have to be the best leader ever or be like a guru, but just self-awareness. It's that one thing that can't always be taught, and the best leaders, they're just open to it. They ask for more feedback. They say, how can I help? They're just, it's a different approach.
It's so interesting because it actually loops back nicely to what you were saying earlier about, our truth. That's just, my truth's perfect. What's wrong with yours? It's like, and everyone's truth is, right? Because I'm not the problem here. It's like, I don't know what's wrong with all these people. It's like, I know people keep leaving me, but what's wrong with each of them? It's like, how many people can be wrong until eventually you go, maybe I am the problem. Maybe my story, or maybe my truth is not quite correct here, right? So it's that having that hindsight. Is it hindsight, or that two words used at the very start again is impact and perspective? It's having that perspective to look at your own perspective, to see your own truth, or to question your own truth, right?
You're right. And what I've seen, and sometimes I'm just dumbfounded because I would see people and companies leave in exodus. Like there were just like tons of people leaving, and the leader I'm thinking of just, I was wondering, like, at what point, and I don't know that I have the answer to this, at what point do you say, wow, I wonder if it's me? I don't know. I don't think this leader got to that point. They thought it was, oh, it's the industry, it's this and that and the other, but they are looking for reasons then. And so I think just a healthy question is just to say, well, what is my role in this? Or better yet, how can I help the situation? And I don't know that a lot of leaders get to that point. and it's and again, I'm not sure that can always be taught or trained, because they're sort of lost in their, a lot of these leaders are so lost in completing tasks, daily tasks, where, oh, I got to get this done, that done, this deadline, tomorrow deadline, that they are not still enough in their head to really have any perspective on anything, because it's always a crisis. It's always, I don't want to look in their head, because I'm pretty sure it's this like chaotic noise, and a lot of people live that way their whole lives, unless often a trauma occurs.
And it's a really interesting view, because I know it's Jordan Peterson and others that talk about, unless we are true to ourselves, and everything we do in life it's all on one record, on one thread, or one line, if you like. And even if we try to be something else, ultimately with that correction or that thing has to be undone, or that, we can't, it's all on one plane, one perspective. And whilst we could try to do different things in the masculine way, we can force our way to future, we can force our success, we can do all this, we can work 1 billion hours a week and all this great stuff. But then if you're not being true to you, ultimately you will always have to come back to and reconcile back to that one perspective or one plane that you are. Does that make sense?
I think so. And you will always be chasing this vision of someone in your head that's not attainable, because that person doesn't exist. You've created this person who will be enough once you do this or achieve this, or you're this role or this and that, get a certain title or whatever. But you're still that person in your head. You're still who you are. But most people spend their whole lives in that chase. And you mentioned sort of that plane, and I think most people live sort of two lives concurrently. They live like this work life, and they live the personal life, and there's two, and they think of it like, well, there's my work life and there's my personal life. And I would argue that, you know what, it's all just life. And I wish we would stop thinking of like this work life as this totally different person and different, there's nothing wrong with being a person in both places. And I wish more company cultures were different. You can still be a professional and be a person at the same time. But most corporate culture is not, we're not there yet. It's a very, it's like two separate lives. And I think that's why I never felt like I settled in any corporate environment, because I often found like I didn't fit. I just felt it. And it was always a struggle every time I was there. I just didn't feel, because I was a role. I was reduced to a role. And I knew that if I left, they would replace me in 5 seconds. And that was it. And I think those best leaders, they know how to, coming back to that, they know how to do that. They know how to treat people as people. And you can feel that, and not roles. And I think that's almost an art form, is really understanding how to get the best from people. And I think that stems from treating them as people, as simple as that sounds.
I don't think it might sound simple, but it's probably one of the most complicated things to do in terms of workforce, right? Is to have people that are, because the whole thing is like working should make you energized and make you motivated, not the other way around. You shouldn't get motivated to go to work. It should be the other way around. It's like working motivates me and inspires me. It's to love what I do and do what I love. That's the thing, right? So you see it so many times. People work to basically get to the weekend so they can then lie on the couch, or they can then sleep or catch up, or catch up with their lives, and then so they can then go back to work again to then drain themselves, to then go back and recover at the weekend. Is that work? That sounds more like a penance. That's more, it's a restriction or a fine, right?
Yeah, you're right. If if you ask people how they are, like where I am in the US, it's a lot of people greet themselves by saying, how are you? They greet each other. How are you? Good. You? How are you? Good. How are you? Good. Good. Now, often, well, it's never a real answer you're going to give someone. It's just an automatic, like, good. You? How are you? Good. You? Um, and oftentimes you'll have people reply and they'll say, how are you? Not too bad. I don't know, saying that, people say that a lot around here. I always find it interesting because it's like, wait, so you're bad, just not too bad, I guess. Or people will say things like hanging in there, or, oh, it's Monday, or like, now, most of the time, just asking that question, how are you, is just a pleasantry, but it's never a real question. And people aren't given real answers either. And I think that's the missing piece when we're on this sort of, we live for the weekends and we don't realize we're doing these things. We don't realize we're coming across in this way, but we're so in our heads. So what I try to do is, people can feel if you are transactional or interactional. People can feel that. And what they're used to is transactional. They are used to being a means to an end or a role. And they have an internal conflict because they don't feel enough. They don't feel made whole. They don't, there's something missing. So they're always chasing something. They're always chasing more and more and more because they don't feel whole on their daily basis. What they're doing does not, their job or whatever, does not make them feel whole. And that missing piece is just the authenticity, I think, in their lives. And again, people can feel that. Whenever someone asks me how I am, I give them a real answer. Now I don't say, oh, I'm terrible, this is a terrible day, but I try to at least be present enough with them to have a real interaction and say, you know what, I'm tired this morning, but you know what, it looks like it's going to be a great day out, and I'm good. I'm good. You just try to give some sort of a real answer. And I think being present like that in your life and just slowing down enough, I think that creates that authenticity. And if you realize that you're, again, being yourself as someone you allow, I think people I've seen, they experience a lot more peace.
It's not, it's perspective though, right? It's how you choose to turn up, how you choose to say, listen, yeah, it's an awful day. I'm hungover, I'm wrecked, or I'm really tired, or I'm exhausted, or whatever. But then it's the perspective says that actually, not only am I doing that, but as you say, it's like, I'm a bit tired today, but you know what? It's going to be a good day. So I'm giving you a fact or a perspective, if you like, but then you're manifesting or you're affirming something great is going to come. So I like that. It's a mixture of truth, but with positivity thrown in on top. It's a realistic view, right?
It is. And, to me, everyone, there's that word happiness, right? And everyone's chasing, oh, if I do this role, I'll be happy. If I do that role, if I achieve this, I'll be happy. If I have this house, I'll be happy, or this partner, I'll be happy. Happiness is a state of mind, though. And it's always dictated by your circumstances, right? And, as life does, things like, oh, I don't know, cardiac arrest or whatever, financial difficulties or whatever comes up. Okay, I'm not happy now because my circumstances are great. So to me, happiness, is it attainable? Well, some people would say yes, but I would say, are you after happiness? Because peace and happiness are two different things. So for me, happiness is always contingent on your circumstances being aligned in a way that you like, right? But that's not life in general, right? But what you can have is you can be in a place where you're enough and you feel comfortable with that. You're confident in that. You don't have to have everything figured out. You're confident in that. You can take risks and get rejected, and and that didn't affect your perception of your own value, and that will create mostly peace for yourself. But I think what most people are after is this like happiness, which is again that story they've created in their minds about, oh, this is the person I need to be to do that. And I see it all the time. It's like working with clients, a lot of clients were stressed to the max, and they're always like one or two things away from getting there, right? Getting to happiness. Or, one of my clients was a student. She was finishing that. She was getting, and she was actually getting her doctorate. And she insisted that everyone was calling her doctor, even like when it made no difference. And that drives me nuts, by the way, is when you make everyone you see call you doctor, but even when it makes no difference. In other words, you're talking to the person who's mowing your lawn and they want you to call it doctor. And for me, that's again, you have created yourself into this person who is worth a certain amount because of a circumstance, right? So I think a lot of people are chasing these, again, things that really don't make a difference to who they really are. They're just building the resume, kind of. It's more of an ego thing. But the peace, they never get to that place of peace. They never get there. Because once this client I had, she was retiring from a military career and then had another career and was a student and was like a pastor or whatever, and all these different things. What you find for most people, once she retired, once her university was over, she still was not happy. She thought she was there. And the busyness that she thought would end didn't. It's like Parkinson's law, busyness expands to fill the time available for its completion. And again, she never made it to that place. So I guess my point is to get to a place of peace, you don't really need anything to happen per se, other than right now, you are where you are right now, and your mind is quieter and open. But the peace is never going to come by chasing all these different things, because again, you're always relying on these circumstances, because there's always going to be something that's going to happen. That car that makes me more valuable, well, someone ran into it and now that's a problem I have, and there's always something, right?
Yeah, it's that sort of belief that actually, as you say, you're incomplete until this is slotted in, until the next thing's slotted in. And that's it. Anytime you are seeking or you're searching externally, it's like that's never going to fill the void. The only person that can fill the void is the inner version of you. Is doesn't matter how many titles, how many cars, how many whatever, right? It's like, and how many times do we see that? People saying I have everything, but actually I feel nothing, and sort of, yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah, no one on their deathbed says, whoa, that life went by way too slow. No one says that. And what they often realize is, or people who've gone through trauma, and myself included in there, is we spend so much of our time chasing these things, but what was the value of that? In other words, the why, the why, like, why am I doing, like, why am I staying in a career that I have to work 80 hours a weekend if it's just familiar and I've been there a long time? Everything has a cost, right? And I kind of look at life like, this is a little odd to say, so bear with me here, but I look at life a little bit like poker. And in other words, everything I do is, how much is that worth? And like, how many poker chips is that worth? And the poker chips are time, right? And for some reason, I always think of it like that. Like every decision I make is like, I am betting that much time on that because I'm saying it's worth it. It's worth that. And often it's not worth that at all. And again, people have heard, time is that one thing you never get back. And when I was in the hospital, my cardiac arrest, I did not think I had any more time. I was like ready to say my goodbyes basically. And suddenly those small moments of time, those real small moments, just random images of, maybe playing in the snow as a kid or going on a bike ride to a pond I like to go to. Those are the things that we really look at and say, wow, I would go back there in a heartbeat, in my case, literally a heartbeat. And I would do anything to get to that place again. And you do not think about your resume. You don't do it. You just don't. Yeah.
I mean, interesting. So you wrote a book, and to introduce it properly, so it's the half-known life, what matters most when you're running out of time. Give us a bit of an overview. What is the book about, and how does it really tie into, your experiences?
It's so funny because I had someone respond, say, you know what, I retired early. I got plenty of time. I don't need this book. I thought, I responded, I was like, fair enough, you got it. But for me, we're all running out of time is the point. And it's actually from a quote from Moby Dick. And the half known life is really our inability to see ourselves. That's really what the book is about. It's about the inability for us to see ourselves and an exploration of that. And hopefully it will resonate or be a catalyst for people to kind of shift, because if you ask somebody what their priorities are, everyone's going to have an answer. What matters most when you're running out of time? Most people are going to give you an answer with that because they know, right? Oh, my family, but again, the problem is that they don't reflect it. So yeah, it's really intended more as something as a catalyst for that exploration.
And what was your intention? What is it you're trying to say, and what is it you're trying to get across in this book that actually somebody will go through? And what have you learned from this as well?
The book does have some tips in it. It's not a book of tips though, strategy, because again, you talk to 10 gurus, they're going to give you 10 different ways. That's like the right way kind of thing. This is more of what is going to work for you and having you shift towards that. And it's a very real book. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's more of a realistic take on what are you saying. Like, you saying you know what matters most. Okay, well, what are you reflecting then in your life, and how do you get out of that? And I've actually been working on it for about 10 years. And I guess, yeah, better late than never. Took me that long, but yeah, and it's a reminder for me too, just to kind of slow down and and be aware of my own energy, because I have to be. If I'm not aware of my own energy, I do get sick. I do get dizzier, and my health does deteriorate. So, yeah.
In hindsight, I mean, did the cardiac arrest, did that have to happen for you? Do you think that's part of the journey, and that was always destined to happen? Do you think?
I wish I could say that, okay, I had a cardiac near-death experience and suddenly I am this like reborn. I actually did think that already a little bit before. I was kind of devouring all the self-help and like presence and mindfulness and all that already. It almost confirmed what I thought, that how precious it was. It was kind of ironic that it happened. And what I knew seconds before I blacked out, I knew it was going to happen. Not the cardiac arrest, but I knew I was going to lose consciousness. I look to the lady next to me and I just say, I'm good. I'm going down now. And, fortunately I received CPR, but I think I was on a lot of that. I just was devouring that kind of already. But what it did do, it really made me on an ongoing basis prioritize my energy really mindfully. And that's not to say I get it perfect or I don't have struggles, because I do. But I always am able to pull myself back and say, okay, let's. And I think you're never going to get to a place where you're perfect all the time. But the question is, do you have enough self-awareness to then pull yourself back and go, oh, there I go again, my mental chatter, my mental noise. How am I living? Kind of like I'm checking in with myself. And the whole journey of the book allowed me to do that in a better way.
Well, it sort of circles back nicely to what you're saying. I mean, it's that, if you're a failure or the introversion or anything, it's sort of saying it's almost laughing at yourself, not laughing, or just reflecting on yourself and saying, my goodness, I really got caught up in that, didn't I? And that's okay. Listen, we went off on a bit of a detour. I'm conscious of it now. I've sort of realized that maybe it wasn't quite the truth that I was talking, or I was just a bit distracted, or it just went off on one. But that's okay, right? So it's being forgiving of self and saying, listen, I'm introverted and that's okay. I'm maybe not being sincere, I'm being incongruent, and that's okay, because now I have the opportunity to correct, as opposed to just blindly never seeing yourself or never reflecting on yourself, right?
Yeah, most people would never treat someone they loved like they treat themselves in their own heads. In other words, like if I was giving advice to a loved family member or whatever, loved one, I would never speak to them the way that I speak to my own self in my head. And so what I learned to do is just sort of take it with a grain of salt and say, oh man, you're right. You're like, there I go again. And once I catch myself going to loser town, in other words, like I'm starting to go, oh man, I'm a failure, this and that, I sort of go, okay, what do I actually know about this situation? Like what actually happened? Do I know why I got rejected? No. Okay, I'm making assumptions then. Okay. Does me getting rejected for any variety of reasons, does that make me a failure? No. Okay. So what I'm doing now is my mind is sort of running away again. And I think I don't say that never happens anymore, that I don't have those thoughts. What I say is I can see them better. I think a lot of gurus out there say, oh, this is the path to enlightenment and you'll never have these thoughts again. I don't know if that is something that is realistic for me, but I think, again, I grew up with this like terrible anxiety, terrible low self-esteem, bad self-talk, and so forth. But I think it's treating myself with a little bit more love. And like with clients, I say, if you mess up, every day can be a redo if you want it to. Every day is an experiment, trial and error. You mess up today, you didn't do what you intended. Okay, do it again. Okay, you didn't do it again, or do it again. And every day is a redo. And that's the sort of grace that you can extend to yourself too, not just other people. And I think there's acceptance there to say, you know what, give yourself permission to have boundaries, to care about yourself. And if other people don't like it, that can be okay too. That can be okay too.
It's that aspect, isn't it? It's almost a self-hypocritical. We will, yeah, we'll not do things because it'll take too long or too much effort or anything else, or I haven't got time. And then the flip side is that we're saying that, it's like, it's like I could do so much, or, we've time in different perspectives. If we're looking at somebody else, it's like, but yeah, you could have that done in a week. It's like, yeah, but how many things have you not done that you could take a week and have it done, or, just crack on and get it done, but you sort of go, oh no, I haven't time. It's like, okay. It's like, but it's having that perspective of self. It's having that perspective of, that sort of what's possible and what I could do. And I'm curious, almost linking back to, I suppose, your NDE, your what do you describe it as an NDE? I don't want to put words into your mouth.
I would say so. I would say so. Sometimes people go, "Oh, you had the cardiac arrest." I say, or you died twice. And I guess I didn't, because I'm talking to you. But yeah, I would say an NDE. I'd say near death experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
So it's that aspect, but it is a game changer, isn't it? Because once you see that perspective, then all bets are off. Or excuse me, all the things that were important is suddenly like they have no weight anymore. It's like we're so busy. It's like, really, wait till you drop on the spot, and then let's see how busy you are to, I'm too busy to have a cardiac arrest.
I wasn't busy then. Yeah, I was busy just sitting there in the hospital going, what's going on here? And sort of it was so unexpected that what reminds me, and I've talked to a lot of other people through experiences, and you never know. We're all just here for a short time, and we all say we know. I know, like people say life is short all the time. I know that, but again, you don't reflect that in your daily life, right? And we make choices that don't reflect that, and that's all your life is, in terms of, it's all a series of choices that you've made about what is and is not important to you. And what would have to happen for you to see things differently, or to change?
For you, what is life all about?
I used to have those concrete goals I was describing, where it was like, only if I am even a coach as a role or whatever, if I got this job, or I got this training, or even if I help this client, it's all part of a role. And I was the role of provider, and then the client was the role of client. But at the end of the day, my life purpose is exploring who I am, exploring what is to be experienced on life. And I think for me personally, and this is definitely just personally, I just feel like for me, it's the smaller, simpler joys that are more quiet for me and allow me to, I think I learn a lot about myself when I'm quieter. And just like a simple bike ride, I mentioned to, like a simple bike ride to like this little pond I go to. I just think just sitting there and watching the birds or something. Most people don't have time for that. But again, that is, it's something beautiful to me to look at. And I think, again, if you can come to the end of your life and say, I really experienced that and took it in. Because most people, their purpose is whatever this person they created, that if they have to, in order to be enough, they have to achieve that. Or you could think of more religious stance, where it's whatever God wrote out for me or whatever. But for me, it's more of just experiencing, as much as possible.
I mean, I think it's a beautiful perspective. It's just the experience, and it reminds me, 6 months ago, I walk in a local forest and just picking up a leaf. And it's like, there's 7.2 odd billion, or maybe more now, people on the planet. And yet we as humans could not create this leaf. We can do amazing things. We can help. We can duplicate. We can do all this, but we could not create this single leaf. And there's God knows how many million leaves in that forest alone. And it's like we're everything, but we're also nothing. And
well said. I agree. And, you know, lately I've been trying to like help this stray cat, and she's so tiny and hungry. And I've been trying to, I don't know what I'm doing really, but I look at her and I just think of, I wonder what her life is like. You know, she doesn't have anyone. She's probably never been touched. And I just find something beautiful, like, I don't know, trying to have a relationship with this cat to where there's trust. And I think that's more, I feel more at peace, or at, you know, fulfilling my purpose there, working with a stray cat, than I would in any career endeavor, if I'm being honest. There's just something, you know, just beautiful about being there with life. And, you know,
is the cat there for you, or are you there for the cat?
I'm there for the cat. I don't know how much she wants that. She wants the food. She's probably, even though I haven't been able to touch her yet, to pet her, but I think she's done more for me, I would say. I think she's done more for me than I've done for her, you know, for sure.
Which is powerful, right?
Yep.
It's how I know, even with my own kids, it's like, you know, people are saying, you know, I'm teaching my kids. It's like, are you sure? Are you sure they're not teaching you? And it's when we have that, you know, it's that experience. You know, we take the time to have that experience and go, wow, that person's taught me so much, you know. And you know, that's why I love podcasting. You get to talk to people and hear their experiences and share experiences. You know, it's the power of experience, right?
Absolutely.
I do want to be sort of really respectful of your time, Ryan. So I mean, just really a couple of things, I suppose, really to ask. If you were to try and summarize your fire in your belly in one or two words, what would they be?
I think it's the drive to learn about my experience here, as I mentioned, and just not just for me per se, but what does life have to offer, and always aware of time. It's like, of how you mentioned the leaf, and I you know, all of our lives are like that, you know. We're all those leaves. And for me, it's just what drives me is, you know, how can I experience those things before my time is up? And hopefully that doesn't sound dark, but that is true. So
No, that's not, I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing that. So where can people learn more about you, get a hold of you, track you down, stalk you, buy your book, etc.?
They can check out my website, rslindner.com, rslindner.com. I have social media links on there. They can also go to my book website, which is halfknownlifebook.com, halfknownlifebook.com. And, you know, Amazon, of course, is available.
That's wonderful. Is there a final message you'd like to leave with our listeners today?
I would say, who you think you are. You don't know how your story plays out. And I would encourage you to really think about who you are without listing your resume, and really explore that.
That's beautiful. It's powerful. Ryan, listen, I thank you for your time. I love your reflections. I love your take on life. So many beautiful points there. So I thank you for your time, and listen, let people get out there and get a copy of your book and go from there. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Of course. I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.